When I first found out that Brian was going to be deployed to Iraq, I jumped on a plane and went back and spent the weekend with him. And that goodbye was one of the hardest things I've ever experienced, because as parents we have to let go of our children at various phases in their lives, whether it's school or marriage or college or whatever. But saying goodbye knowing your son's going to go to war is unlike something I've ever experienced, and I wish no one ever had to. It was horrible. But what it did is cause me to turn to the Lord in prayer like I never have ever in my life. And what came of it is the realization that there are certain things that are completely out of our control, that nothing I could say or do was going to keep my son safe. The one thing that I could do was the thing that mattered the most, and that's prayer.
We have one son in the military. He's actually really out of harm's way. He hasn't been to Iraq. He's in Okinawa right now. And he's been on the table. The orders have been there, you're planning on going to Iraq in a few months, and then they take him off the table. And so his plans have changed several times since he's been overseas. And right now he's not slated to go, but when he comes home to Camp Pendleton in October, many people have said that's the leaping point from Pendleton to Iraq. So
I have two sons who both have done 3 tours of duty in Iraq and 2 tours of duty in Iraq. It was very hard to have them both gone over there at the same time, but it was, and I'm going to expand on this, but it was because of this group, this prayer group and support group more, because we became friends so much.
MOS is a group that was started about 1.5 years ago, and it started out as a support group, and now it seems to be more a group of friends that have just gotten closer to God and closer to each other through praying for each other's family members. Nancy Lockwood actually came to me with the idea. She was asked by a coworker that was in real need of support for a son that was going overseas to, was there something out there available? Was there some way that there was a group to help her get through this awful time of saying goodbye to him before he went to Iraq?
And she said, my son is in Iraq and I can't stop crying. I need to know how you did it. How did you get through the first time? And I said, okay, we need to get together. We need a group of people because there's such strength in prayer, and we need the camaraderie of others who are in the same place. So that's when the Lord sent me to Diana, and Diana Mattoon and I started MOS.
And we just kind of put our heads together, and God just put it on our hearts that now's the time to have a group. We need to get together and pray. And it started out as just the 3 moms, and we put the word out, and at one time we had 10 or 15 people that were coming.
But it's a safe place to come and be in the presence of the Lord and hear His voice, to be able to pray with other mothers, other family that's concerned about their servicemen, whether they're in Iraq and in danger, or whether they're on a base here in the United States. MOS is a privilege. For lack of better words, it's a privilege for me to be a part of it, whether I'm there right at the group or whether I'm at home praying for the servicemen and their families. Because families, when you pray for a serviceman, it's not just praying for them, it's praying for their whole family. And it's been a privilege.
Before Patrick went in the military, I probably wouldn't have even looked twice at a group like this. I would have said, it's a great cause, and I'm just, I don't have time for it. He put time in my day for this. He just put a real fire in my heart to be part of something like this. and didn't need to lead it, just wanted to be part of it. Knowing that I have the privilege to pray for others, and they're in turn praying for our son, just has meant so much to us. We just feel like there's a huge blanket of protection over our son, and we've just been really blessed. God has afforded every one of us safety for our kids in the military. We just can't, we couldn't number the times that we've heard of incidents where lives should have been lost and they weren't. God's truly blessed our group and everybody associated with it.
That my own son came home from 2 tours of duty with no physical injuries. That's answered prayer in and of itself, because there have been so many soldiers who've come back with injuries, lost limbs, emotional trauma. The fact that he came home safe and sound is answered prayer in and of itself, and he did have an improvised explosive device go off under his Humvee, and I've seen the pictures and heard him tell the story, and it is absolutely a miracle. There was no one hurt in that Humvee. He was driving the armored Humvee, and we've all heard the stories about the explosives that are buried underneath the ground on the roads, and that as the soldiers are driving over the roads, it causes them to explode, or they may be remote detonated, I'm not sure. But in this case, there was one buried under the road, and it exploded underneath his Humvee. And it blew a huge hole in the road and blew the Humvee and caused extensive damage to the vehicle. But one of the guys was temporarily knocked unconscious, but other than that, they were all safe. And I firmly, completely believe that that is the grace of God, that is the shield of protection around him and around his vehicle that we've been praying for. And my son's faith grew through this whole thing too. He kept a journal the entire time that he was there, and I've gone back and he's let me read all of his journals from both of his tours, and he was baptized there, and one of his entries said, that I know that God has a plan for me, and it is not to die in the desert of Iraq. And thank God it wasn't his plan, because he brought him home. And we have many of those stories. We've had some injuries. Some of the soldiers have been in some pretty scary incidents. They've been in places of extreme danger, and we've had some injuries, but nothing that they couldn't recover from. And so it was just over and over again evidence that God was honoring our prayer and our sacrifice of time and our faith.
Both of my sons were used by God through the prayer of this group, and I know other groups too, because they were on a lot of prayer groups, prayer lists, the letters that they wrote, saying, I know you're praying, we can feel it. We can feel it here. It's giving us, those prayers are giving us the courage to do the job that we have to do. Don't stop praying. Both of my sons, one son had the privilege of leading a soldier to the Lord and being there and baptizing him. That my other son, because of those prayers, was able to, on his volunteer 3rd tour of duty, was actually commissioned by another chaplain here in Visalia, because my son said there aren't enough chaplains over there. That chaplain commissioned him and said, go. Sent him Bibles, and because of, I know it came from our original prayer because my son told me. And they saw miracles happen because of the prayer. When they should have been dead, it was that split second that my son called on the name of the Lord. Some of these roadside bombs did go off as they were going along that should have destroyed their truck and their vehicles, and it didn't. And James said that he knew just like instantly when the first bomb went off a couple of vehicles ahead of him. He he and the fellows there just called on the name of Jesus. And when he wrote me afterwards and called me the following week, he says, "Mom, were you praying?" And he said, "I know you were praying because we were spared. We were spared." And it was God's love and hearing those prayers.
We've all prayed together for all of our kids and people that we don't even know that have just called and said, "We have family in the military. Would you please pray for them? We can't come to the group." And so we just know that wherever our son goes, wherever Patrick is sent, you know, God's already gone before him. He knows every step that Patrick's going to take, whether it's foreign soil or here on home territory. So we're just trusting that he will be protected.
And all of our prayers were answered, and it's been a phenomenal faith-building experience. Something that you wouldn't wish upon anyone for their children to be in harm's way, but it's been really good for us. We've made great friendships and so many answered prayers that we can't even count them all. It's been a wonderful experience, and we've made really good friends too.